Hey, this is Warren Redlick. I want to thank you for watching. We're getting ready to go here. I'm going to just briefly introduce, this is my Sunday live stream, and I talk about a lot of different topics. You can see the topics on the left here, and the green box. The green box tells you where we are. So if you're watching this later and you want to know, you're only interested in Tesla news, you just watch on the left side to see when the box is down at Tesla news, and you know that's what we're talking about. I'm actually going to be spending a lot of time on Tesla news today. I'm just making sure everybody can hear me, right? Yeah. So I'm gonna be talking a lot about Tesla today because we had the fourth quarter investor call. Little bit of news. I spent a day with Paul Fossey from Clean Technica and Zach and Dave from Clean Technica at the Sebring International Raceway, watching a professional driver named Blake Fuller drive. Blake Fuller was driving Paul's new Model Y long range, Dave's Performance, I think, Model 3, and the new Mustang Mach-E around the track. And I have video of it on my camera that I haven't put in a position to be able to show you today, but I will hopefully incorporate it in some of my videos. I believe that some of my videos will be on Clean Technica's channel soon, possibly. So, in other news, I made progress on the Cyber Cabin. If anybody checks back on my channel, I have a video about Cyber Cabin. When I went up to Sebring, Cyber Cabin's location is going to be just south of Sebring. This is in Florida, south of Orlando, about halfway between east and west coast of Florida. Not far off US Route 27 near... wow, what's going on with my voice? Not far off a lake called Lake Istokpoga. About a mile off that lake, which is a great bass fishing lake. So... looking fresh. Yeah, thank you. Oh, and just, this is a SpaceX shirt. I'll be showing this later, Evolution. I love this bit here. The next rocket is on the edge of the shirt, and I can pop that up for you. The Rocket Evolution shirt. I'm working on, this shirt is available, and the Boring Brain shirt, I'm going to talk about Boring Brain in a minute. This is something we're going to talk about, but the Neuralink in the middle of a boring tunnel. I think that's exciting. I don't know whether people are going to buy these shirts, but I like them. So, is this too loud? Is my mic too loud? I feel like my mic's too loud. I'm going to lower the volume a little bit on the mic. So, SpaceX toothbrush, I don't think that's going to happen. So, that's, there's not, I don't have a lot to say in the welcome other than, check this outline if you want to see where we are. The first thing I want to talk about is Boring Brain. So let's move on to that. Like I said, most of this video is going to be about Tesla because it's such a big day for Tesla, but let's cover Boring Brain first. Like I said, there's the t-shirt. I just ordered mine. I don't even have it yet. And it's not even approved by YouTube yet to advertise it. The shirts are in the description below, but it's not even approved for advertising in YouTube yet. But you can go to the store and it's on the throat problem looked at soon. So, t-shirts in the description below if you're interested in that. So my last video was about this Boring Brain idea. My last video was about investing in the Boring Company and Neuralink. And is there a way we can do that? So, I made a video describing how I think about that and what we might be able to do about it. And I would encourage you to check the video, my last video where I talk about it. I created an email list for people who are interested in possibly going down this road. Please watch the video first, and if you like the idea, click on the link and enter your information on MailChimp. In MailChimp, the list has already grown to over 700 people, which is very, very promising, so I think this is likely to go forward. So I'm probably not going to talk about this again because as I understand the way this works legally, I probably can't talk about it publicly. I can only talk about it to people who are on the list. So if you want to have access to that information, please watch the video, make sure you like the idea, and then sign up on the list. This is not a fund. There's none of the legal documents prepared. The fund is not created, but the idea is in progress. I met with lawyers. While I was at Sebring, I actually had a half-hour phone call with some lawyers in New York. I'm talking with some lawyers in Miami shortly, and I'm probably going to talk with at least one other law firm and get this set up. And once it's set up, then I'm going to email the people on the list to say, hey, here's the actual fund, here's the actual terms. And I don't want to get into details because legally I don't think I'm supposed to talk about it. So, but I'm excited about it. It was just a random idea a couple weeks ago, and all of a sudden it's mushroomed into 700 people signing up, and probably be more than 1,000 people on the email list soon. So that's great. And on my channel, this channel went over 40,000 subscribers, so that was great stuff. So that's boring. And in boring news, wait, let's see. Can't see. There we go. Let me just. So Elon announced, it looks like the Las Vegas system, that the beginnings of the Las Vegas system for Boring Company are in place. This is Elon and 3 of his kids in one of the stations of the Boring Company tunnel. Really cool. So they're making progress on the Boring Company. Very excited about that. Neuralink released a video a few days ago about the machine, the surgery machine that will that will do surgery on the person's brain. It's a short video. I think it's less than 5 minutes. Really good video talking about what they're trying to do. Really encourage you to watch that. I think Boring Company and Neuralink are, I like to say it this way. People are looking for the next Tesla. And for me, first of all, Tesla is the next Tesla. Tesla did this huge phase of growth, and people who invested in Tesla early made a lot of money. I believe, and I'm going to talk about it down here, when we get to valuation and growth, Tesla's got a lot of growth in it. So if you're looking for a company that's going to grow and you're going to make a lot of money investing, I'm not a professional investment advisor. I'm not giving investment advice, but I think Tesla is the next Tesla. If you're looking beyond Tesla for other potential Teslas, Boring Company to me is stunning. They're doing a project in Las Vegas right now that they've basically completed. That project is going to expand to much larger than its present size. They're pretty clearly starting something in Austin, Texas. They may do something in Ontario, California, which is near Los Angeles, for those who don't know California. It's just connecting the airport to a train station, not a huge deal, but a small project. And then Elon had this exchange with the mayor of Miami and apparently talked with the governor of Florida about doing tunnels in Florida, in Miami. And I know people think you can't tunnel in Florida. You're wrong. I did a great interview with David Wilshaw, a Florida geologist, and he says absolutely you can tunnel in Florida. Elon wouldn't be talking about it if it wasn't possible. Boring Revolution, if you watch the Boring Revolution channel, he just did a great video explaining the layers in the Earth's crust, the sand, the clay, the limestone, where the tunnels go, where the water table is, how it all works. He did a great explanation. There's the fear of sinkholes and what causes sinkholes. Great video by Boring Revolution. I encourage you to watch that. So that's really good progress. I mentioned Neuralink. There's not a lot of news on Neuralink yet. I think Neuralink, the Boring Company, I think is on the precipice or on the edge of spectacular growth. Like 1,000x where it is now. Maybe more than 1,000x where it is now. Neuralink, I think could be the biggest company that Elon is starting. I'm picturing 1 billion customers paying $10,000 a piece, just to give you an idea of where that, and maybe more than that. And then they upgrade every 2 or 3 years because there's a new chipset that's better. I mean, it's just that crazy. So, but Neuralink is really in the early stages, and it's going to be 2 to 5 years before they really start growing. I don't think the growth is 2 to 5 years away. The real growth is 2 to 5 years away. Where with Boring Company, I think we're going to start seeing the growth in the next year or two. So, and I want to talk about SpaceX next. The investing idea, people have asked me about SpaceX. It's in the video. I love SpaceX. SpaceX is my first reason for getting involved in this. The first big video I did on this path I'm on was SpaceX. I'm wearing a SpaceX t-shirt. I'm wearing the Rocket Evolution t-shirt right now. I'm not down on SpaceX. I'm up on SpaceX. I'm up on Tesla. I love these companies. I think we missed the train. I think SpaceX, for what I'm trying to do with Boring Brain, we missed the train. SpaceX is already more advanced than that. It's already beyond what I was targeting. I want to target early stage growth companies, and SpaceX is already basically a $100 billion company. So not that there isn't growth there, but let's talk about SpaceX for a second while we're on it. So, yeah, cool. So SN9 hasn't done its test flight yet. I'm not sure what the issues are exactly. Maybe the FAA, something like that. There were some issues, but now SN9, these are 2 starships. They're basically ready to launch in the same place. They're in the same basic spot where they can launch together, and Elon tweeted this photo of the two of them together. Kind of cool. So, if people think it's about a Starship, Starship is really about a manufacturing system. It's the machine that builds the machine. They're building a machine that will build 1,000 starships or 10,000 starships. So, this is much bigger than people realize. But I'm not sure about the profit story for SpaceX going forward. I understand the Starlink profit story, the Starlink revenue and profit story. I'm not sure Mars is a profitable mission or just a mission that Elon wants to do so bad he'll spend his money on it, and I would chip in on it. But I'm not convinced it's got the same revenue and profit story that Tesla and Boring Company and Neuralink have. So as much as I love it, and the other thing is, it's so big that the funding rounds for SpaceX are so big that I think it's going to be hard to get in with a small. No matter what we do, the fund is going to be a small fund, and it's not going to be big enough. So we're not going to be needle moving for SpaceX. So I'm worried we wouldn't be able to get in. So that's the current plan. All right. So Starship SN9 should do like a 10-kilometer flight. I think this week. I thought it was going to be last week. I'm not sure what the holdup was, but it should be this week. SN10 appears to be about ready to go. And then SN15 is coming. Elon made this comment. I should have saved this tweet. Elon made this comment that maybe it's SN10 has major aesthetic improvements, but SN15 is a big improvement, and that's under construction. And I think Super Heavy's under construction, so we're seeing a lot of progress. Then there was there were 2 offshore oil platforms that SpaceX bought that they're retrofitting to be launch platforms. So really exciting stuff going on with SpaceX. But the big news this week is obviously Tesla. So we're going to go to Tesla news. I am totally stoked about Tesla. Now the glasses come on, because I have so many notes. If you watch my channel, I think 2 videos ago, I made a video where I went through the investor call was, I think, Wednesday. And Wednesday night, I stayed up till 5 in the morning making a video, going through bit by bit the investor call and breaking down what happened. And I'm getting a lot of positive feedback from people that video is really helpful in understanding the investor call. It's almost 2 hours long. My video is almost 2 hours long. But people are watching a lot of it. Like, YouTube gives me statistics telling me how many people watched, how long they watched, when they stopped watching. There's all this great stuff that I get. And people are watching more of this video than any video I've ever made. It's really, and I'm getting a lot of comments like, wow, you really helped me understand this. This was really, really important. So if you are a Tesla investor or you're thinking about being a Tesla investor, again, it's not professional investment advice, but I would encourage you to watch my video that I just did this week, breaking down the Q4 2020 investor call. I think I actually watched it before this. I wanted to refresh myself before I did the live stream, just so I'm prepared to talk to you about what I saw in there. And I actually broke it down. I'm going to be doing a video this week with a shorter breakdown. I'm going to try to do a non-2-hour video. Try to break it down to, maybe I can get it to a half hour. If you guys know my channel, it's tough for me to get under half an hour with some of my videos, and there's so much in there. So I'm guessing it's going to be closer to 40 minutes, but I'm going to try to break down point by point. I'm going to cover a lot of that right here, right now. So if you watch this video and you watch through, because most of the rest of this is going to be about Tesla, you're going to get it. So, the first thing, number one, they had their fourth quarter investor call. Some details that I'm not going to cover in depth. We knew this already. They delivered they produced and delivered 500,000 vehicles in 2020, which is, I think he said it's about as many as they had delivered in the company's history. This is huge growth already, spectacular growth. A lot of details in there. Okay, so let's go into my outline then. So, just good news: 6 quarters of profitability. The first full year of profitability. They're making money. There's been some criticism in the media that they didn't meet some sort of earnings expectation, which is nonsense. If you listen to the call, and again, this is explained in my analysis, although I hadn't heard the criticism before when I did the analysis. Yeah, earnings were not as high as people were forecasting because they used the money they had. They have a huge amount of cash coming in. They did a cap raise. They have all this pile of money. They paid off some debt. That means profits going forward. I think it was like $100 million interest expense they had to absorb in Q4 2020 that they had to account for in Q4 2020. That reduces earnings, the reported earnings. It doesn't reduce how much money Tesla has, or the net worth of the company, or the value of the company, or the growth of the company, it's actually a good thing long term for the company because that debt is paid off. Now we're not paying that interest in the future. And Zach Kirkhorn said they expect to pay more debt off in the first quarter of 2021. So earnings in the first quarter of 2021 might not be as high as people are predicting, because they're consciously making decisions. And another thing that Zach said was, we had so much cash, we invested. I'm actually going to, I don't think this is in my outline. They're using the money that they have to increase the rate at which they build out the factories. I think the way Zach put it was, when they build out the factories, sometimes they build out partial capacity and then they add capacity later. They're building out the entire capacity of Giga Berlin and Giga Texas right away, which means it'll ramp faster, and it also increases the efficiency of capital expenditure. When they spend money to build a factory, that's capital expenditure. And if they do it all at once, the expenditure is more efficient than they do it out over time. There's efficiencies in doing it all at once, apparently. And they also spent a ton of money expanding the number of supercharger stations. The number of service stations grew dramatically. There was a investor call, and I occasionally hear criticism of Tesla's service. And I love this line. This isn't in my outline. Love this line from, I think it was Jerome Guillen. The best service is no service. So if you as an individual have a bad service experience, you might tell other people, hey, I had a bad service experience. But Jerome's point was, we had one third fewer service visits. The best service is no service. The best part is no part. The best process is no process. We got a t-shirt for that. I'm gonna have to add a new t-shirt. The best service is no service. On Tesla's numbers, fewer people need service. So yes, there may be some issues with, and keep in mind they've scaled up volume, so there's more cars. But I don't know if he meant 1/3 fewer service or 1/3 fewer service per car. If you have twice as many cars and you have 1/3 fewer service, you actually have twice as much service you have to do. But if you can improve the quality of the cars and the reliability, then you need less service, and that's the primary goal. So that was really, really good stuff. Okay, so let's go to batteries. There's a lot of stuff on batteries. In the investor call, it sort of bounced around. People asked questions about it a few different times, but some key details. Number one, they're making great progress on the 4680 cell. Drew Baglino talked about the battery cell line that they have in Fremont, California, Cato Road facility, that I believe the way he said it, they've got a 10 gigawatt hour line built out. It's ready to go. The production equipment's already there. I think they're already producing cells. And they're making progress, and they expect that line to produce 10 gigawatt hours this year, or maybe it'll hit 10 gigawatt hours of capacity this year. But more important, really, really stunning from Drew. And I love this, by the way. You'll hear Elon talking, and you'll hear Zach talking, you hear Drew talking, and Jerome talking, and people will talk about Elon time, or Elon's over enthusiastic, over optimistic, but the other guys are on board. Same thing with Gwynne Shotwell at SpaceX. If Elon says something, okay, but if Gwynne says it, if the rest of the team is saying the same thing, I have a lot more confidence than it's just Elon's over optimism. So Drew is pretty committed to, we will have 200 gigawatt hours of 4680 production capacity in place in 2022. Basically, what that means is the Fremont line, the 10 gigawatt hour line they've built in Fremont, is performing well enough. With ongoing improvements, it'll do better, but they know where they are enough that they're comfortable going out and installing 200 gigawatt hours of capacity, 20 times what they have in Fremont Road. This factory in Fremont Road, by the way, this is a small factory. It's a part of a building. It is the 10th largest, in terms of production, the 10th largest battery factory in the world. In like a tiny space. So the plan, as I see it, is they're going to put double that 10 times in different factories. It's pretty clear they're going to put lines in Giga Berlin. It's pretty clear they're going to put lines in Giga Texas. I think it's pretty clear they're going to put lines in Shanghai. I'm a little fuzzier about Shanghai. I'll tell you why. But to add up to 200 gigawatt hours of total production, I guess my theory is that if each line produces 20 gigawatt hours, then they do, or maybe it's each line produces 10 gigawatt hours. But let's say each line produces 20 gigawatt hours, because I thought that was the number. Then they do 3 lines in Berlin, 3 lines in Texas, and 3 lines in Shanghai, and that's 9 times 20 is 180. And then they up Fremont to 20 gigawatt hours, and they've got 200 gigawatt hours of capacity. Now, one of my theories is they're not producing the 4680s in China. I think I'm wrong about that, but that was one of my theories, that they wouldn't produce the 4680s in China, and then they would do it in Berlin and Texas only. I'm not sure what the plan is. Are they going to produce any in Nevada? So far, I haven't seen any hint that they're going to produce any in Nevada. It looks like it's Texas and Berlin. My original theory about why not Shanghai was, well, the Model 3 and the Model Y are being built in Shanghai, and they're not using 4680 cells, and there's no factory on the horizon that would be using 4680 cells in Shanghai. So that's why I think it might just be Berlin and Texas. The other thought in my head was, well, what's the primary vehicle that's going to be using a lot of 4680 cells that we know about? And it's the Semi. And just to be clear, I understand now the word is semi, not semi. So I'm going to say Semi, hopefully going forward, and I'll probably make mistakes. And I was thinking, well, there probably isn't that much demand for semis in China, and I have a sense of what the demand is. I looked up the demand for semis. These are tractor trailers, the big trucks that are used to pull trailers in the United States and elsewhere. And I thought, well, we call them Class 8 trucks, I believe. And I had looked up before in the US-Canada market, it's about 250,000 semis. And I was just curious the other day, I wonder how many they use in China, how many they buy in China. And I figured it'd probably be less, who knows? It's a poorer country, right? 1 million. Chinese market for semi is 4 times the size of the US market for semi. So I gotta think they're gonna build a semi factory in China. That's a huge market. It's a market that loves EVs. It's a market that is the country, the bureaucrats, the rich. No matter how rich you are, no matter how powerful you are, you still have to breathe the same air. And the opportunity of building semi in China could be monster. So they haven't talked about it at all. I think there's a really good chance they're going to build semi in China, and they're going to build a 4680 cell factory line in China just to supply semi. The other vehicle that's going to use semi is Cybertruck. I'm going to talk about that later. But so that's the 4680 cell, and great progress. Just so you know, I'm going to have to. Normally, I would go as long as it takes, but I know I've got a hard cutoff at 3:30 p.m., so about 2 hours and 10 minutes. I don't think we're going to have a problem, but we'll see. That would be a long video for me, a long live stream for me. So, yes, that's true, Rob. The Tesla had a battery demo on Twitter with come work on batteries in Berlin and Austin. There's no hint that they're going to do batteries in Shanghai, but that semi market in China is so huge. I got to think they're heading there soon. So, there were questions about the progress on the 4680 cell, and what I heard was very optimistic. This is so comical that you see the share price, fluctuate. I think it dropped below 800. I'm like, what are these? What investor call did these people listen to? Who listened to that investor call and thought this was bad news? There was not a bit of bad news in that investor call. It was all spectacular news. Drew and Elon said that the production of 4680 cells is going well. As I heard it, what I heard in that call, you can listen to my video or listen to the call yourself. Drew's description was that they, expected to have bumps in the road, and there were, engineering challenges, and they've gotten through all of the engineering challenges so far. They are still on pace to achieving 100 gigawatt hours of battery production in 2022. They are still on pace to achieve lower cost per kilowatt hour, getting the cost per kilowatt hour down. The goal they had specified was getting the cost per kilowatt hour of the high nickel cells down to $55 or $60 per kilowatt hour, and they said they think they're going to do that in 3 or 4 years. So this is outrageous. How fast this improvement is looking like it's going, and basically what Drew said was every week they make improvements, every quarter they make improvements. They're making improvements along the way. They're making a lot of progress in yield, and I forget the other term. Yield is how many of the cells are good. So they're making improvements in yield. They're making improvements in producing more cells. They're making improvements in watt hours per kilogram. And they're going to achieve, if they achieve what they say, and Elon seemed to be on that page, 400 watt hours per kilogram by, I'm guessing, end of 2024, early 2025. So for perspective, the 2020 Model 3, Model Y, Model S, whatever, they were about 260 watt hours per kilogram. At some point, I think Tesla has reached 300 watt hours per kilogram. I think the we'll talk about, we're going to talk about Model S and Model X later, but they're making radical improvements. And the key detail here is when you improve watt hours per kilogram, either you can put more longer range battery in the same vehicle, or you can put the same range battery in with less weight. And by reducing the weight, you're actually increasing the range as well. And I think we saw that. I'll talk about that with Model S and coming up. So I think that covers what I had on 46.8. Let me just check my notes. I took notes before the call, before this video. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about one other thing with 4680 cells. Tesla's production. This is key to, and I talked about this in the video before, and I'm going to talk about it again next week in my next video. Tesla's production of battery cells. I think people don't get it. They're projecting 100 gigawatt hours of battery cells in 2022. And it's not just that. They're still buying cells from LG Chem, from CATL, and from Panasonic. And Elon used the word that said that the Tesla production of cells is intended to be supplemental to cell production by their suppliers. That if their suppliers, they want their suppliers to sell them more cells. They want to grow the amount of cells that they buy from CATL, LG Chem, Panasonic, whoever else is willing to supply Tesla with cells within reason. They want the price to be reasonable so they don't have to raise the price of vehicles. But and if, as I interpret the word supplemental, what that means is if Tesla produces 100 gigawatt hours of batteries, they're buying more than 100 gigawatt hours of batteries from their suppliers. And this relates to, if you follow my channel a lot, the battery revenue model. How many batteries are they buying? And whenever you hear somebody saying, oh, Tesla's overvalued, blah, 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 my favorite question to ask anybody who challenges Tesla's valuation is, okay, how many batteries do you think they'll produce in year X? Let's say 2022, it could be 2030. They have set a pretty clear target that they are going to produce 100 gigawatt hours of batteries in 2022. And how many batteries will they buy from suppliers in 2022? And to me, based on what they said, they're going to buy more than 100 gigawatt hours of batteries in 2022. So take a step back. We're going to talk about valuation in a minute. I'm going to come up with this again, but I'm going to hold that up, and we're going to cover that later. I want to see where my notes again. So, okay, so that's great news. 4680 is growing. They're going to hit 200 gigawatt hours of capacity in 2022. They're going to deliver 100 gigawatt hours of batteries in 2022. They're going to buy 100 plus gigawatt hours from suppliers. Monster growth for the company. And then going forward, 2023 is going to be even more, like radical growth in 2023 and 2024 and so on. The 1865 cell or the 18650 cell, the cell that goes in the Model S and Model X, I was wrong. I thought that Tesla was going to rapidly shift to 4680 cells. And I think I understand why I was wrong. Elon said Model S and Model X are going to continue to use 1865 cells. These are, I forgot to bring, somebody sent me a battery model. I left it downstairs. Fred Jessup sent me a battery model. So the 1865 is the oldest battery that Tesla uses. It's 18 millimeters in diameter. It's 18 millimeters in diameter and it's 65 millimeters tall. The 2170's got a little bit bigger diameter and it's a little taller. It's 70 millimeters long. And the 4680 is a much bigger cell with a much longer, and it's taller, 80 millimeters. So significantly bigger cell. So they're already making 1865 cells and 2170 cells. And Elon explained this. It doesn't make sense to shut down those lines. They're still producing good cells. The reality is that the 1865s and the 2170s that Tesla is using are probably the best batteries on the planet other than the 4680. So why would you stop producing cells that are perfectly good? And he said that the 1865s and Model S and Model X are a new chemistry. So I suspect that they are over 300 watt hours per kilogram. They might even be to 320 watt hours per kilogram. Talk about that when we get to Model S. So they're going to continue. I don't think they're going to shut down a single 1865 or 2170 line. They're going to keep producing them. And over time, I'm guessing 3 to 4 years from now, at some point, they're going to say, we don't need those cells anymore. We've changed strategies or whatever, and it's time to shut those lines down and just go. He said they are planning to go to uniformity with probably 4680 cells. But in the meantime, the other cell suppliers are going to keep producing cells, and Tesla's going to keep buying them. So that's great stuff. Okay. I think that covers what I wanted to talk about with batteries. So let's move on to FSD. This is also monster news. Number one, FSD is going well. FSD beta is now about 1,000 users. They expect that to grow. Elon is describing it as working really well. His advanced version of it generally works without having him intervene at all on a typical trip, even to places I don't know. So FSD is improving. There's this changeover in the foundational rewrite from the way that FSD used to work in terms of how it worked in the car and how it worked at the home office and in learning and training. But it used to look at all 8 cameras separately, frame at a time, and make decisions based on that. And they've shifted the whole, what they call software stack, all the software that works around the cells and the chips and all the hardware, so that it's actually processing at a video level. And Elon talked about this at Autonomy Day, and they've just made a lot of progress. So they haven't completely gotten everything over to this level. So it's basically, instead of operating in 2D, it's going to be operating in 4D, because it's not looking at one still picture at one time. It's looking at a 3D environment over a period of time. I don't know how long the period of time is. I don't know if it's half a second, or longer, but they're making judgments based on video clips rather than based on still shots. And that is radically improving FSD. FSD is learning faster because it's using this 4D video format. Something that surprised me and something I got wrong. On Autonomy Day on the 2019, Elon talked about the next version of the chip. There's a chip in the car that at the time was called FSD3. It's apparently now called FSD1. The chip that was started going into cars in, I think, 2018 or maybe it was 2019, is doing so well that there's no rush to implement a new chip. It is well within its processing power to handle everything that is being thrown at it. So far, they don't feel a need to move to a new chip. The chip that's in the cars now, they're now calling FSD1 chip, and the chip that's coming, it is making progress. They will be using this chip at some point. I think one of the details was, in order to take advantage of the new chip, they would have to go to higher definition cameras. So, like, you could put the new chip in the existing cars, but the existing cars with the existing chip, you wouldn't gain anything from it. Matthias, thank you for your support. I don't have any thoughts on Adam or Neo at this point in time. I think that I made a video about Neo, and my thoughts haven't changed on Neo, and I don't know what Adam is. But thank you for your support. So, Dojo, this was huge. So I think the next chip will go in the Tesla 2023 Compact. I think at some point Tesla will start implementing higher resolution cameras, a higher level of high definition cameras that will be able to take advantage of the processing power of the new chip. But it's just not necessary yet. Sorry, I don't know who this is, but I don't know who BitMEX Fast Money Trader is, but I don't like what I saw in your comments. Please keep your comments in line. So that's, the progress towards FSD2 chip appears to be unnecessary. And the key point there is they're making so much progress that Elon believes they're going to deliver, by the end of this year, FSD will be 100% better than human, as in twice as good as a human driver, twice as safe. Maybe 200% better, 3 times as safe. And then Dojo comes along, and I think that's probably middle of this year, they're going to hit 100%, 200% of human driver safety. I I think what we're going to see is Dojo is going to come along, and Dojo is this whole separate thing. This was like amazing. Dojo is going to come in, and he described it as basically an order of magnitude faster than any other AI training hardware in the world, which an order of magnitude means it's 10 times faster. So if Dojo, so the idea is they're going to achieve 100 to 200% better than human driver, twice, 2 or 3 times as good as human driver by third quarter of this year. And then Dojo comes online, and Dojo will, over time, take it to 2,000% better, or I think that's 20 or 21 times better than human, getting to the point where accidents become really, really rare. And that's a great world that we're heading towards. And when you can see when it gets that much safer than human, I'm going to want my kid riding in that. We're all going to want our children riding that. We're going to want to ride in that. If it's going to be that much safer, that's a huge detail, especially in countries and places that have higher traffic. Like the United States has pretty safe traffic. Our traffic death rate is far lower than some other countries. So especially in places like, say, the Dominican Republic, the gain that would arrive from having that could be huge. I think India has a lot of traffic deaths. So deploying FSD, if it's much, much safer than human in places that have high traffic deaths, would be a big, big deal. And the other detail about Dojo that was kind of mind-blowing was they anticipate being able to sell AI training services, kind of like cloud AI, with Dojo. Because once it's done its job training the cars, at a certain point, you got free time on this computer. Maybe they can sell the service kind of like Amazon Web Services. And Elon was talking about this becoming a separate business, and we have no idea how big that business could be. So just spectacular stuff there. So really good news about FSD. The other detail was people want transferability, and I don't fully understand the transferability argument. It's not something that excites me, but there's this talk about going to a subscription-based FSD, and I still don't get it. And Elon didn't really explain it. And I think in the Q&A we'll probably talk about how subscriptions work. To me, the problem with subscriptions is you would have to charge so much per month to not offend people who are buying FSD, that people who can't afford to buy FSD can't afford to pay for a subscription either. I don't understand how that's going to work. Is it going to be per mile? Is it going to be per month? Is it going to be per day? How is that going to work? I'm confused about what the idea is. I think that's interesting. I personally, waiting for my Cybertruck, I put 7K. I'm going to get 7K FSD on my Cybertruck. I ordered a second Cybertruck. That'll cost me 8K. Because I think Cybertruck is going to be by far the safest vehicle on the road because of construction. But anyway, so that's FSD. I think I covered what I wanted to cover in my outline there. Vehicles. This is the vehicles are sort of the headline grabbing stuff that makes that it's the easiest thing for people to understand about Tesla. So obviously the big news was Model S and Model X, and there's so much to it. I got to go to my notes on this. So number one, I said earlier, Model S and Model X continue to use the 1865 cell with a new chemistry, and it appears they are not using structural pack. Well, that's not clear. Elon said they might do another call or something where he's going to present the new Model S and Model X and explain more about them. The Model S is in production now. Model X will be in production soon. Spectacular stuff. Pricing, the Model S long range is $80,000. That's up about $10,000. There is no longer a performance Model S. There's now a Plaid Model S and a future Plaid Plus Model S. So Plaid Model S is $120,000. Plaid Plus is going to be $140,000. And I looked at the specs on this, and one of the striking things was Model S long range, I think, lost 300 pounds of weight. Is, I don't know, 120, 140 kilograms dropped in weight. That's really, really stunning. I think people don't come to grips with that. So, and I on Twitter, I don't know if I would call it an exchange, but Limiting Factor and I were both talking about this. I think Limiting Factor only thought it was down 250. By my count, it's down 322 pounds. So it's probably closer to 140, 150 kilogram drop in weight. With longer range. It went from 402 miles of range to 412 miles of range. So Limiting factor was guessing. I think he's right that they actually went to a smaller amount of kilowatt hours in the pack. Oh, that's another detail. They lowered the drag coefficient to 0.208. So it is, which is very, very good. It means it's very, very good in aerodynamics, which is going to help with highway driving in particular. But dropping the weight, and we think they may have gone from a 100 kilowatt hour pack down to a 90 kilowatt hour pack. I think that's reasonable. And then the Plaid also dropped a lot of weight. The what used to be the Model S Performance, I think, was around 5,000 or more than 5,000 pounds. That's down to 4,766 pounds. That's lighter than the previous Model S long range. And mind-boggling numbers: 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds, 1.99 seconds. A quarter mile in 9.23 seconds. I'm not a big race car guy. If I was buying a car, I wouldn't get Plaid. I don't, 3.10 to 60. The Model S long range is 3.10 to 60. That's plenty fast for me. That's probably faster than I'm comfortable with. I'm an old fuddy-duddy now. I'm not that like I went up to the Sebring racetrack. I didn't even ask to sit in a car. I didn't drive a car. I'm more excited about the practical stuff, like Cybertruck. But the Model S long range, $80,000, 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds. That is about $25,000 less than a BMW M5 and a faster 0 to 60 time. $25,000 less. Thank you, Matthias. Tim Dodd said if you break 9 seconds of the drag strip, you are required to have a parachute. Yeah, I believe. Oh, Tim Dodd. Yeah, Tim Dodd is everyday astronaut. Yeah, so the Plaid Plus, in order to operate on most drag strips, will probably have to have a parachute because it's going to be sub 9 seconds, 0 to 60. These are Plaid alone. The Plaid Model S alone is faster 0 to 60 than, I believe, any production car in history. And Plaid Plus is going to be faster than that, and Roadster is going to be faster than that. This is just insane numbers. Then the Plaid model, not even getting to Plaid Plus. The $120,000 Plaid model is going to do that 1.990 to 60. Compare that to a $500,000 Ferrari two-seater. Okay? That's 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds. It's half a second quicker 0 to 60 than a Ferrari supercar. Like, who's buying a Ferrari now? Who is buying these high-end cars? Who's spending $500,000 a car when you get a faster car for $120,000? And then Plaid Plus is going to have 520 miles of range. The regular Plaid is going to have 390 miles of range. The Plaid Plus is going to have 520 miles of range and go even faster. Who's going to buy any other hyper sports car when you've got these out there? And then Roadster's coming. It's just absolutely crazy. Okay, so I think I covered what I wanted to cover on Model S and Model X. So I want to move on. Oh, so I want to move. What's my next vehicle? Cybertruck. Where did I have Cybertruck? So I think I'm going to cover Cybertruck and Roadster in the same. Well, I'll cover Cybertruck first. Oh, thank you, Viksha. Thank you for your support. Much appreciated. If you look in the chat, people are donating money. It's much appreciated. I love doing these live streams, and I really appreciate the support. I don't make as much money on ads on the live streams as I make on my other videos. So really appreciate the support with the people contributing like this. Super stickers, super chats, whatever they are. Greatly appreciated. Thank you, Viksha. So, Cybertruck, this was my question. I had a question I submitted on say.com that I was hoping would be read, and I didn't quite make the cut. But my question was, will Cybertruck be delivery start in 2021? My question was not asked, but a very similar question was asked by an institutional investor. And Elon's answer was, in short, if they're lucky, there may be a few deliveries into 2021, but volume production will happen in 2022. So Cybertruck design is validated. They finished the engineering basically, and they're ordering manufacturing equipment already to start getting ready to start probably getting the manufacturing equipment in place, probably going to build the factory to get Cybertruck going. One detail I was surprised about, if you go back on my channel, I have a couple videos where I talk about Cybertruck's weight, and it appears I was wrong about something. I always like to own up when I'm wrong about something. My weight estimate assumed it was the exoskeleton steel and then the structural battery pack underneath, which that's my updated weight based on what I knew then. It now appears that they've got an 8,000-ton casting press that's going to do a large rear piece that goes under the bed of Cybertruck. So that's going to add more weight than I thought. I don't know how much that piece is going to weigh. I think it's fairly light. Thank you, Aaron, for your support. Very much appreciated. So I think I had predicted that the single motor Cybertruck was going to be down to close to 4,000 pounds, and I think this piece is probably going to add at least a couple 100 pounds. So Cybertruck's going to weigh more than I thought, and I may have to relook at that, and I may come up with a new video on that. Volume production 2022, everything's looking good. Elon was positive. There wasn't a lot to say about Cybertruck, but it was good. And I want to cover Roadster. I don't think I have notes on Roadster here, but I believe it was very similar with Roadster. There's no hope of deliveries of Roadster in 2021. He didn't suggest that, but design engineering, everything for Roadster is ready to go, and they've just got to start getting production ready. And I think the thing holding up Roadster and probably Cybertruck both is they need the battery production going before they can start producing the vehicles. Because Cybertruck is supposed to use 4680 cells, and Roadster is probably supposed to use 4680 cells. So I think they're waiting for that before they can really... There's no point... As Elon put it, there's no... And somebody asked him about electric vans. I don't think I put electric vans on my list. I think I did put the electric van. There's no point in producing vehicles you can't make batteries for. So he said they definitely will do an electric van, but they don't have the batteries for it yet. So the electric van, the semi, the compact, the Roadster, the Cybertruck, they all need the 4680 cells, so they're all waiting for the cells to be produced, and they're making progress on producing the cells. Master Photon, great question about Cybertruck. Does the rear casting change the structure design so it's no longer exoskeleton? I think the answer to your question is no. I think that most of the structure of the vehicle is the exoskeleton, and I'm guessing there's a reason why they need the rear casting piece. I'm not going to argue with the engineers. There's a reason why the engineers are doing that. So we don't know how much it weighs. We don't know what its point is, but it looks good. Yeah, Jim Bates, I believe that Cybertruck will use the 3mm steel. I think that's pretty clear. So, Cybertruck, Model 3, Model Y, everything's going good. I believe Shanghai is not fully ramped on Model Y yet. There was this, I don't think I didn't save it. In the slide deck for the investor call, there's a chart that shows production capacity. And production capacity for Shanghai is 450,000. I believe that is current, and they expect that to grow because they haven't fully ramped Model Y yet. So that's good news. Everything's going great with Model 3, Model Y. Berlin Model Y is moving along. I believe that they expect to produce a somewhat significant number of Model Ys in Berlin and Texas before the end of this year. So that's really good stuff. Everything seems to be going well with that. Semi. Really interesting detail about Semi. A couple really interesting details. One, this was like almost muffled. I think it was Jerome Guillen talking. He said that they've enhanced the regeneration. I'm not using the right words. That the regeneration, what's the word? When the vehicle slows down, using the kinetic energy of the vehicle to recharge the batteries. I think it's called regen. It sounds like they've come up with some kind of improved regen, and they're getting a lot more efficiency out of the vehicle doing regen when the vehicle slows down or it's coasting downhill or whatever. That makes the Semi more efficient. And that led to this point where Elon said Semi uses 5 times as many cells as a regular vehicle. And that caught me off guard because I thought it was 10x. I thought that a Semi would need a megawatt hour of batteries in order to be able to achieve the 500-mile range they talked about. And it sounds like 5x a 100 kilowatt hour Model S would be 500 kilowatt hours. So that's half as much batteries as I thought Semi needed. And what Elon said, the key detail here was Semi uses 5 times as many cells, but we only sell it for twice as much as a regular car. So I think that's in the ballpark of, a Model S having a 100 kilowatt hour pack and costing $80,000. So you sell the Semi for around $180,000. It's somewhere in that ballpark. So it's really and I don't know how low they're getting the battery pack there. So that in a sense, it doesn't make sense to sell Semi because it doesn't make enough money for the number of cells that it needs. But as they're able to spool up cell production, all of a sudden it becomes okay. Once cells become less of a constraint, it makes sense to sell Semi. It makes sense to move. Like they'll make more money on Roadster per vehicle. They won't sell Roadster in high volume. They'll probably make more money per battery on Cybertruck than they will on Semi. I think that's probably where he's going with that. An electric van, again, same thing when they do that. Compact, they'll be making more money per cell. No, I think it's 5x. I believe that he said the price is twice as much, and the 500-mile semi is going to be $180,000. That's about 2x a $90,000 Model S, or a Model X, let's say, and Model S, we're guessing Model S long range is down to 90 kilowatt hour pack. So if you just assume 100 kilowatt hour pack and a $90,000 price, then 5x the 90 kilowatt hours is, well, if you assume 100 kilowatt hour pack, 5x is 500. I'm wondering if they're getting it down below 500 kilowatt hours. That's crazy. Crazy. So semi's looking good. They've started hiring for semi manufacturing. Great stuff there. Compact, there's no real news on Tesla Compact yet, and I covered Roadster. And van, they asked him about a van. He says, we're going to do a van, but there's no point in doing a van yet. So that was vehicles. Let's move on. Let's move on to what matters for shareholders. Let's get the shareholders excited. Growth and valuation. So growth, and they said this multiple times, they're targeting 50% growth a year. And multiple times I heard them say, I think I heard Elon say at one point, I don't know if it was Zach or Elon, maybe they both said it, in excess of 50%. I think Elon said this. They expect in excess of 50% growth for many years to come. If you've looked at my models for Tesla, I have generally assumed 50% growth. That's my optimistic scenario, right? Is 50%. I was actually working on a model for Tesla going forward where I was cutting it down as low as 30% growth. And now I'm like, well, and the valuation with 30% growth is like $7,000 a share in 2030. If they only achieve 30% growth, it's still worth $7,000 a share in 2030. If they're going to do 50% growth, you're talking $30,000, $40,000 a share in 2030. If they're going to do more than 50% growth, it just goes nuts. The numbers just go, and there was more. We're going to get to valuation in a minute. But so multiple times, multiple people, Drew Baglino, Zach Kirkhorn, Elon, talking about achieving more than 50% growth. Zach was more conservative. We think it's likely we'll achieve more than 50% growth in the next couple years. Elon is like in excess of 50% growth for many years to come. Massive, rapid growth of the company. This is spectacular news. And you can see it in the 200 gigawatt hours that they're going to produce, the 200 gigawatt hours of capacity they're going to have in place in 2022, producing 100 gigawatt hours of their own cells. And then growing that. And then the next year, it's going to be 300 or 400 gigawatt hours of capacity. The growth there is stunning. Solar roof is growing. The solar sales, both solar roof and solar retrofit. I think it went from 57 megawatt hours to 86 megawatt hours from quarter 3 to quarter 4. Superchargers are growing. Everything's growing. They're growing fast. If you look at the slide deck, the growth rate of these things are insane. So I'm going to talk about PE when I get to valuation. Somebody asked about PE. No, but I don't assume a 40 price range, but we'll get to that. So great growth. I don't think I have anything more specific on growth, and they're just giving these growth numbers of 50% or more, which is absolutely crazy growth. And I think they may grow faster than that. They're talking they're going to grow faster than that. So, all right, let's talk valuation. Valuation is where it gets really fun. So Elon was asked about valuation, and he talked about it 2 different times in the call. He talked about it in the context of FSD, and he talked about it separately in the context of batteries. And he basically said, let's suppose we produce $50 billion worth of cars, $50 or $60 billion worth of cars. His attitude is if FSD works, it 5x's the value of the vehicle. Because instead of operating 12 hours a week, it can work 60 hours a week. I think he's going under, I think he's sandbagging that. I think a vehicle that's self-driving, why wouldn't it drive 120 hours a week? It doesn't need brakes. Maybe it needs a brake to charge, but it needs a brake to get, looked at. But basically, vehicles should be able to run 120 hours a week, 100 hours a week. But he's saying 60 hours a week. He said, if the vehicle is only valued at twice what we were charging for it before, then you double the revenue, and most of that doubling is profit. So he called it napkin math, whatever. He got to this point of, let's suppose we have $50 billion in profit and a 20 price earnings ratio, and we have $1 trillion valuation. I'm like, first of all, if you double it, you're more than $50 billion in profit. You're more like $60 or $70 billion in profit. And a 20 price earnings ratio is insane. So I'm sorry, some of you may not be familiar with the concept of price earnings ratio. So I'm going to cover this really quickly. Generally speaking, one of the most common ways to value a company is on what's called the price earnings ratio. You look at how much money the company made and you multiply by a number, somewhat arbitrary number, and that leads you to a price. So for example, right now, Apple's price earnings ratio is around 43. Amazon's price earnings ratio is around 95. Elon said 20. So in other words, you take the earnings for a given year and you multiply by this number and you get to what the company is worth. And normally a faster growing company has a higher price earnings ratio. Company that's, steady, not growing much might have a price earnings ratio of 10. Company that's shrinking would have a low price earnings ratio, maybe 5 or less. A company that starts growing fast, that starts growing a bit, gets a price earnings ratio of 20. A company that's growing faster, and the perception is that Apple and Amazon are growing very fast, their price earnings ratios are really high, 45 and 95, 43 and 95. So for Elon to suggest that the price earnings ratio is only 20 is kind of crazy, because we're talking about a company growing more than 50% a year, you would have a very, very high price earnings ratio. So if you did what he said, his number was you double revenue from 50 billion to 100 billion, and most of that is profit. And then he just sort of picked $50 billion a year in profit out of the air. To me, on the first 50 billion, you probably made 10 billion in profit, right? So you're really doubling 60 billion. You're really doing your price earnings ratio on 60 billion, not 50 billion, but we'll go with the 50 billion. Your price earnings ratio should be at least 40. Thank you, Matthias. Oh, Matthias, for some of my models, I use PE ratio. For my straight battery revenue model, I use the price sales ratio. For the FSD model, I use the price earnings ratio. When you're talking about profits, you use the price earnings ratio. When you're talking about revenue, you talk about the price sales ratio. So price sales ratio is you look at how much revenue the company has and use a different multiple for that. So Apple's price to sales ratio is 8, where their price earnings ratio is 43. Because revenue, you have expenses, so you really should be valuing the company based on earnings, but price to sales ratio is another way to measure the valuation of a company. So if you did a 40 price earnings ratio, which I think is still low for Tesla's rate of growth, you would have a $2 trillion valuation, or about $2,000 a share. So sitting here right now, and this excludes Tesla Energy. This leaves out all revenue and all profits from Tesla Solar, from Tesla Megapack. You're at $2 trillion valuation. Okay, and that's this year, and I insist, a 40 PE ratio is insanely low for a company that's growing more than 50% a year. Okay, so now take a step forward. And this was the other valuation model that he was asked about. He was basically asked, I swear, whoever asked this question, watch my battery revenue model videos. Could you value Tesla based on the number of batteries produced? And Elon basically answered, yeah, batteries are batteries are what's limiting the growth of the company. The more batteries produced, the more vehicles we can make. So if they're going to produce, so this is my approach to this, and I'm going to make a video on this week. I got 2 big videos to make this week. Hopefully I have the time to pull it off. If they produce 100 gigawatt hours of batteries in 2022, and if they buy only 100 gigawatt hours from suppliers, I think they're going to buy more than 100 gigawatt hours from suppliers. But let's suppose they have 200 gigawatt hours of batteries to work with in 2022. If you only made Model 3s, okay, and if you only made Model 3s with a 50 kilowatt hour pack, which is roughly the standard range Model 3, which roughly sells for $40,000. Not including options, FSD, whatever. So with 200 gigawatt hours of capacity, a 50 kilowatt hour pack, if you did 20 of them, that would be a megawatt hour. If you did 20,000 of them, that would be a gigawatt hour. If you did 100 gigawatt hours, that would be 100 times 20,000 or 2 million. If you're going to 200 gigawatt hours, you're talking about 4 million Model 3s with 50 kilowatt hour packs. And now I'm not suggesting Tesla's going to make 4 million Model 3s. They're going to continue making Model Ys, can also make Model Ys with 50 kilowatt hour pack, higher price. They're going to continue making some Model S's and X's. That's a much lower volume vehicle. They're going to make Semi, they're going to make Cybertruck, whatever. But if you simplified your analysis and you said, let's just assume they only made Model 3s and they charge $40,000 a piece, and they end up making 4 million Model 3s, and they charge $40,000 a piece. That's $1.6 trillion in revenue. 1.6 trillion. I believe I got my number. No, sorry, that's 160. Sorry. That's $160 billion in revenue. We're not at the 1.6 trillion. We're not in the trillions yet. $160 billion in revenue. Tesla's revenue for 2020 was $35 billion. So you're looking at Tesla potentially achieving $160 billion in revenue, which is 5x the revenue for 2020 in 2 years. That's a lot more than 50% growth. That's what I'm saying. That's why this is so stunning. 1 second. Getting warm in here. Put the fan on. I got a ceiling fan in the room. You won't notice, but I will. So now that's so you get to 160 billion, and if you do Apple's price to sales ratio of 8x, 8 times 160 makes it over $1 trillion company. But that doesn't count. And Elon jumped in with this when he was talking about this. You got to account for FSD, because when I do this number, I don't count for FSD. If you're able to sell the vehicles for an extra $20,000 per vehicle, let's say you're going to charge $40,000 for FSD and you're going to sell it for, you only sell half of them with FSD, or you sell every vehicle with FSD and it costs $20,000 extra. Now you're talking about 50% increase in revenue. So instead of 160 billion, you're talking about 240 billion. And if you do 8x on the price to sales ratio, now you're talking about close to $2 trillion in revenue. Yeah, almost $2 trillion almost $2 trillion in market cap, or a $2,000 share price in 2022. So, all right. So that's, I think that's all I wanted to say on valuation. I did want to mention on capacity. So Fremont's, this is, we'll move on to Q&A, but I just want to say this before we get deep into Q&A. Fremont's capacity was 600,000 vehicles at the end of this year, started next year, whatever, started this year. Shanghai's capacity is 450,000, so that's 1.05 million capacity. Capacity is not production. Model S and Model X aren't really producing in January in meaningful volume. They're still ramping for the first 2 quarters, so they're not going to achieve their full capacity yet for a while. Shanghai's capacity is growing because as they ramp Model Y, they'll be able to achieve more. So Shanghai should go over 450K by the end of the year. I think Fremont is probably the Fremont Model 3 and Y is 500K. I don't think that's going to change much. So I wouldn't be surprised if they could eke a little bit more out of Model 3 and Model Y in Fremont. But I think we're looking at the end of 2021, Fremont's capacity will probably be in the ballpark of 600 to 650,000 vehicles. Shanghai's probably going to be 500,000 or more vehicles. And then you add in Berlin and Texas. So let's suppose Berlin and Texas each produce 50,000 vehicles. So you got 100,000 Model Ys there on top of 750,000 from Fremont and Shanghai, and you're at your 850,000 vehicles. That's great stuff. Rob, thank you for joining so much. Thank you for joining the channel. For people who want to know, you can support this channel by doing a super chat during the talk or a super sticker. You can join the channel. You can support this channel on Patreon. There's a link below. You can buy the t-shirts. So I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. So let's jump into the Q&A. I'm going to start looking at the chat now. You need to do a video where every revenue potential is realized. What would be the value then? So Chris, the models I use are just sort of oversimplified. I did do a battery revenue model where I broke it down by product line. One of my early battery revenue models breaks it down by product line. And I don't think it's changed that much since then, although I might look at it. Yeah, how does subscription revenue work? I don't know how, I haven't figured out how subscription revenue is going to, we're going to find out in a couple months. Warren, can we discuss macro situation for next week? Ben, I'm not sure what you mean by macro situation. I don't know what that means. Any thoughts on Elon Twitter profile? So Elon changed his Twitter profile to just say Bitcoin. That was kind of cool. I don't know what it means, if it means anything. You know, Elon is a jokester. So for all we know, he's just goofing around. I don't know if it means anything or if he, you know, I don't know why he put Bitcoin on. Maybe he's just fooling around. I don't know. How does Boring Company make money? They do projects and they get paid for their projects. And I think there may be other revenue models for Boring Company in the future. Thank you for your support, Mr. Dopar. Will Europe and China Model 2 come out at the same time, and how different will they be? So there's two different things going on there. Let's talk about vehicles for a second. There are rumors that Tesla will produce a smaller version of the Model 3 in China, like a hatchback, soon, in 2022, ahead of the Tesla Compact. I don't use the term Model 2. Elon explicitly said they're not calling it Model 2. I call it the 2023 Tesla Compact. But before they hit the 2023 Tesla Compact, there's the smaller version of the Model 3 that is apparently going to be produced in China, maybe in Europe as well. That I think they're hoping to get the price of that down to $30,000. That's cool. What would prevent the government from implementing antitrust monopoly laws? I think that antitrust and monopoly laws are a huge risk to Tesla and shareholders. I think that Boring Company revenue could be in the form of, we'll build the project and we'll charge a toll if you guys let us build the project. Tesla, Boring Company could take that approach. I don't know if they will. I think they could go to a city and say, listen, you guys can't afford to do this, but we can afford to do it. We're going to build the project and we'll just charge a toll when people use it. We'll charge a fare and, we'll be reasonable on price because it's going to cost us less to operate it. That could be a way it goes forward. What other uses or devices could the FSD software be used for once they get it to level 5? How much do you think the software... So one of the ideas for the chip in the car that I thought of, they talked about using Dojo as software as a service. People can get AI training through the Tesla Dojo cloud, basically. I was actually thinking they could use the chips in the cars. If your car is sitting at home at night, plugged into the web on Wi-Fi, why not farm out AI operations to the Tesla chipset that's sitting in your car and, pay you, $5 a day. Every day your car is used for, AI cloud processing. Who knows? Will cheap compact car come 10K FSD? I believe that FSD pricing is going to go through the roof. It's really interesting. That's one of the things that's really hard to figure out is, what is the plan for FSD once it goes live? If it was me, if I was Tesla's CEO, and we can all be thankful I'm not, but if I was Tesla's CEO, once Robotaxi was ready to go, I would stop selling cars. I would continue maybe selling the Model S and the Model X and the Roadster, and Semi. I'm not even sure I would sell Semi, but I would basically take all my Model 3s, Model Ys, and Compacts and run them as and Cybertrucks and run them as Robotaxis. The revenue and profits from running a Tesla fleet of Robotaxis is so much higher than selling cars. It's crazy. Ben Cluett, I work in manufacturing. I think I see where Tesla energy scale side to where auto is now before 2025. Yeah, I think that Tesla's solar is going to scale rapidly in the next couple of years. Absolutely. Just getting rid of side mirrors will improve range. That's true. Farm out Dojo AI operation, get paid in Dojo coin. Dojo coin, that would be interesting. Could they do a blockchain based on Dojo? I don't know. That's over my head. I don't know if Dojo is... I don't know if those chips are optimized for blockchain. Has Cybertruck been crash tested? I don't think it's been crash tested yet. It's too early for that. Matt Burns, 2019 Model 3 for $40,000 with FSD. Is that a good deal? With FSD, that's a great deal. Yeah, I would take that. Real growth in share price. I want a Model Y, not a Model 3. I want a Cybertruck. I would like to get my wife a Model Y. Next factory in India, my guess. Where's the next factory? They did not give any hints about where the next Giga Factory would be. I was a little surprised there was no hint at all. I think they want to get Berlin and Texas starting the ramp before they talk about that. But somewhere in 2021, they're going to announce a new factory. They have to. 1 trillion in profits by 2035. Oh, yeah. Well before 2035. Has Elon ever hinted he would do a robotaxi and not sell cars? Yes. It was in his Twitter. I made a video whether Tesla will stop selling cars, and you can see his tweet in that video. Is there unlimited amount of nickel, lithium, and nickel? There is an effectively unlimited amount of lithium and nickel. The speed of getting it out of the ground is the challenge. What is Tesla currently doing with all the 4680 cells they're producing? I think they're saving the cells for Semi and Cybertruck. I had the theory that they were going to be using them in Model S and Model X, and I was wrong. Cybertruck range is cut in half when towing a trailer. Will they offer a larger battery for the dual motor? I would love it if they offered a larger battery for dual motor. I'm getting a dual motor. I would pay for that. I wouldn't be surprised if that was an option. I agree with Clint. The demand is not there in India. The percentage of people in India who can afford a $40,000 car is very small. Even a $25,000 car, it's a very small percentage of the population. Hopefully, India grows, but India's government is not very congenial to growth. They did not give production numbers for 2021. They did say they expected growth to materially exceed 50%. If they materially exceed 50%, that means probably 800 to 850,000 vehicles. Do I think he will sell his manufacturing tech to other companies? Maybe. Will solar panels ever become powerful enough per square inch to power the vehicle almost indefinitely? No. It's the vehicles don't have enough area to be able to absorb that much sun. There's not enough sunlight hitting the vehicle to power them, regardless of how efficient the panels are. How many this is a great question. How many Giga factories are required to produce 20 million cars a year? So I believe that the current generation of factories, the Berlin and Texas factory, the factories that are being built now, I believe that those factories will be capable of producing 2 million vehicles each. So if that's the end of the line in terms of technological development of factories, 10 factories the size of Giga Berlin and Giga Texas would be able to produce 20 million vehicles. However, I believe that when they come out with a 2023 Tesla Compact, the manufacturing process or lack of process will be that much better that they will be able to produce vehicles in even higher volumes. So it's possible they are using, good question, Hassan. It is possible they are going to use 4680s and Model S Plaid Plus. Not clear what they're doing. I thought Model S Plaid Plus was going to have structural pack. So I was surprised they didn't go to structural pack on the refresh. I think the thing is Model S and Model X are flashy and they draw attention and they're high-priced vehicles and they look good. And they're fun to drive the astronauts out to the starships, to the rockets with. But they are low-volume vehicles. They will never be high-volume vehicles because people can't afford most people can't afford $100,000 cars. So I think it's just a way for Tesla to make some extra money, but it's not the long-term future of the company at all. Why do I think Gordon Johnson is still given airtime on financial broadcasts? I think he gets views. People watch it. I've stopped watching him. Would Tesla merge with an India motor company to make EV cars and bikes? I see no indication Tesla's going to merge with anyone to do anything, and I have no indication they're going to make bikes. ATVs, maybe. Eric, I think you're wrong. Eric says, I think he thinks I'm wrong on the solar powering the car. 10 years ago, we couldn't imagine the processing. So there's a physics thing, Eric. There's a physics thing. There is not enough sunlight hitting the car to power the car. Doesn't matter how efficient you make the panels. They can't be more efficient and convert more energy from the sunlight than the sunlight hitting the car. They just can't. And the surfaces of the car are not optimally aligned. You know, you'd really want to be like perpendicular to the rays of sunlight hitting the car. I mentioned that earlier in the call that I made progress on Cybercab, and I met with. I'm probably going to build a sort of standard steel building, a little bit stronger structure than the standard steel building. And the roof that they initially proposed to me was relatively flat, and I want the peak to be higher so that the sunlight's coming in. I want the sunlight coming in as perpendicular as possible. You can't make it perfect, and that'll be regular solar panels. It won't be solar roof because the steel roof is cheap. But that's coming, and so you just cannot optimize your solar panels enough on a car to get enough energy out of the sunlight because there's not enough energy and it's very difficult to optimize unless you designed the car so that there was a huge surface facing the sun directly and you were able to alter its angle based on that, which would be very inconvenient for a car. What do I think of the comparison between Tesla now and VW in 2008 as far as share? I don't have an opinion on Volkswagen. I drive a Volkswagen, but I don't have an opinion on it. Yeah, I think they're making money on S and X, so why not keep making them? Giga Berlin and possibly a battery factory in Indonesia will help give. I think that just the advantage of Model S and Model X, number one, is they probably are profitable vehicles. Over the long haul, they make money on them. They are high margin vehicles. They can charge a lot of money. People are willing to pay for them. And there's a concept called a halo car that it is a smackdown to all other cars that Teslas are the best cars. We make the best performance vehicle in the world. Model S Plaid is better than any performance vehicle in the world. Model S Plaid Plus is better than that, and Roadster's going to knock your socks off. No one can think that gasoline-powered cars are better than EVs when you see what Plaid Plus, and Roadster are doing. So I think that's the idea. What happens to Tesla shares when the dollar collapses? Really good question over my head. If the dollar collapses, the economy collapses with it, so that's bad. Tesla is going to develop gas in Texas, I think, to provide methane for... I don't think that's Tesla. I think that's SpaceX, and they're getting methane out of the ground in Texas to provide methane for Starship. That's not for Tesla, I don't think. I could be wrong. No, I don't think Tesla will ever make a three-wheel vehicle. Elon says he doesn't like three-wheel vehicles. Yes, Model S and X are Halo cars, exactly. Top of the Semi would be enough surface area to strongly supplement solar, was light. I think the top of an electric van, a highly efficient electric, top of Semi wouldn't be enough. The top of the trailer on Tesla Semi might be enough. But now you have a problem that it's not the right angle. The sun is not directly overhead shining straight down on your vehicle. The sun is over here. So if the vehicle is not sloped like this, if it's sloped like this and it's really bad aerodynamically, it's very hard to maximize solar power from a moving vehicle, and the cost of putting sun on the ground and putting it into batteries is not so bad, so it's not necessary. And you add somebody else add this as you put solar on cells. Oh, great question from Will Nurse. What are your thoughts on Tesla making ships eventually? I was working on a video about the idea of not necessarily of Tesla making ships, but just the idea of doing shipping. And I looked at like the largest container ships in the world, and I think it has a 15 million gallon diesel tank. And the batteries you would have to put in a container ship would take up a lot more space than 15 million gallons of diesel fuel. I think it's not diesel fuel, it's some like there's some other term for it. It's worse than diesel fuel. It's even more polluting than diesel. Bunker fuel or something like that. It's some kind of really horrible diesel. So you would have to give up some cargo space on a container ship to achieve anything close to the range. So it depends. If it's crossing the Pacific, I think it's really hard to get enough batteries in to carry across the Pacific. And I'm not sure how viable it is to put solar panels on a moving ship. I think it's an interesting idea. I saw this model somebody did where they basically had these rigid sail structures on the ship, and the sail structures were covered with solar panels. So you got both the wind benefit of using them to push the ship and use the wind to push or pull the ship, and at the same time you're getting solar off the cells on the sails. That's an interesting idea, but I think on shorter haul routes, I think there's enough room for batteries on a lot of these ships that it would make sense. It's the long haul routes, and that's why you need to get more watt hours per kilogram. And you need to get costs down. Seems like semis won't ship much until the Texas factory's in full swing. They also need to buy lots of stainless steel from a new nearby company in Texas. I think Tesla Semi is going to be shipping third quarter. I think third quarter. And it's not clear. I remember where I saw that they were hiring for semi manufacturing in Nevada. So it may be that they're manufacturing semi in Nevada. Omar Kazi said that he thinks they're just manufacturing some parts in Nevada and that final assembly will be in Texas. So we'll see about that. Batteries and solar for transoceanic shipping won't work. To make sustainable, needs synthetic fuels like high. I think transoceanic shipping could work if battery densities get high enough and you give up a little cargo space for the batteries. Are your shorts too tight? Oh, whatever. Waste of batteries, manufactured locally and use the batteries for cars. I'm not sure what you mean, Mike. Mike Buchanan says, "What, Mike, what's a waste of batteries?" Yeah, improving yes, I think solar panels could supplement the efficiency of the efficacy of the car. They could supplement energy of the car. I think there's a plan for a Cybertruck to have solar panels on the back surface of the bed, the back cover of the bed. You could pay for an option to have solar panels on that. And I think Elon also said they might have a fold-out option you can set beside the car. So if you're camping, you drive your Cybertruck in the middle of nowhere somewhere, you can set up exterior panels, and it would generate, I think it was something like 45 kilowatts or something like that? I don't know. It can't be that big. No, not 45 kilowatts. Maybe it was like 45 watts or something. It's just the size the panels have to be really big to get something useful out of it. But maybe you could power your air conditioning with it when you're camping. Maybe you could, get an extra 50 miles out of it a day. That's I think what the hope is. How is it going with Cyber Home? So I met with this guy who runs a steel building company. The cost of building the structure that he quoted me was around $13,000. I'm probably going to do some upgrades, and it's going to cost more. I want to do thicker steel and thicker supports, and I want to do a steeper roof. I don't know whether I'm going to be able to do that. It's good enough the way it was, but I want to make it better. I'll be about 1,000 square feet. It's going to include a impact glass. For those who don't know, impact glass is resistant to hurricanes, resistant to damage from hurricanes. So impact glass French doors on the one side, on the north side, a regular garage door on one side, and a impact glass walkout door on the other side. Thank you, Clint, for your support. Much, much appreciated. So Cyber cabin is going well. So that now I need to get a quote from somebody to pour the concrete. It looks like I will be able to pour a concrete foundation. I think he said 12-inch deep footers on the sides where the load-bearing walls go, and 4 inches thick. I'm probably going to make the concrete a little thicker. Probably go to 6 inches thick. And then I need to have rough plumbing done. I haven't figured out how I'm going to do the plumbing. That's actually one of the challenges. Is the ground? For those who follow this channel, I did an interview with a Florida geologist about doing tunnels in Florida, and I contacted him about this, the ground conditions, and what I need to do a better job of installing cyber cabin on this ground. And it's not great ground. The dirt is not great, and I'm not sure how well it will dissipate. So I'm not sure if I'm going to do a septic field, or if it has to be unusually large, or if I can do a composting toilet. A lot of little things with that. There's no HOA for the cyber cabin. It's just a piece of land in the middle of nowhere. No HOA for that. And a personal update. I'm planning to install Tesla solar roof on my house. We put it in order. They were getting some more information from me, and they stopped. They are waiting for approval. My county, I live in Palm Beach County, Florida. Palm Beach County, Broward County, and Miami-Dade County are sort of 3 counties together. Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and West Palm Beach are the 3 major cities in those 3 counties. Miami-Dade County approves roofing and other construction features for hurricane rating. And Tesla has not yet established hurricane rating, which is 175 mile an hour winds. They got to 167 miles an hour. They're doing further testing to demonstrate 175 mile an hour winds. They told me they think they're going to know within 3 months, and then I should have my roof within 6 months. So, and the HOA has not been asked the question yet. I talked with somebody from the University of Central Florida. They have this solar project at the University of Central Florida, and they are going to be helpful. They have some sort of memo I can submit to my HOA, and they have lawyers that I could do it myself as a lawyer, but my time is better spent. They can refer me to some lawyers who can help me with the HOA to fight the HOA if necessary. Do I need to elevate the cyber home for hurricane season? I'm going to try to make it a little taller, but there's a lake nearby that's 30 or 35 feet lower. I don't think the property is going to flood in a significant way. Panamax needs 1.2 million gallons of bunker fuel to go to Shanghai to LA. That's 50,000 megawatt hours, maybe 15. Okay, I'm sorry. You guys are having a conversation I'm not familiar with. Cheaper solar panels on all sides of semi-trailer, cost tipping point for making this viable. I think you got to recognize that the solar panels are going to weigh something, and they're not going to generate that much electricity if they're not optimally positioned for sunlight. You can be wasting a lot of weight and not achieving anything. What company did you use? Oh, it's Tesla Solar. For the cyber cabin, I don't have the solar planned yet. The idea is to get the cabin built and put the solar on later. And if I can get Tesla to do retrofit solar, that's what I'll do. I want to do Tesla Solar retrofit. I want to do HVAC if they have HVAC ready. I want to do Starlink if they have Starlink ready, and Powerwall. I may have to get a perk test, actually. I'm not sure about that. But if I don't do septic, then I might not have to get a perk test. If I do a composting toilet instead. Sunlight at surface. All right, that's too complicated. Any more progress on the doghouse? No, we took a week off the doghouse. I did buy a couple hinges for the door, but we haven't gone further than that. How much is your roof going to cost? The initial cost estimate for Tesla solar roof for my house was about $38,000, but I don't think that's a solid estimate yet. And my neighborhood, my HOA requires premium roofs. So typically concrete tiles. We have concrete tiles on my roof now. So if we were going to replace our roof with similar tiles, my neighbor and friend just had his roof done a year ago, and his estimate was $38,000. So the cost of Tesla solar roof is basically the same as the cost of doing a concrete tile roof, plus I get a tax credit. when you add Powerwalls, the Powerwalls were like $20,000 for 3 Powerwalls. So that jacks the price up. And I'm probably going to try to push them to do the solar roof with more cells, so I get more solar energy production out of the house than what they said initially. The initial production was 12 kilowatts, and I want to see if we can get it to 18 kilowatts or more. Is a $10 trillion valuation by 2030 for Tesla fair? I think $10 trillion is an undervaluation for Tesla in 2030, but I'm a crazy bull. Am I using a mini split? I'm planning to use a mini split if Tesla HVAC is not available. I expect Cybercabin to be done. The way things are going now, I think Cybercabin will be, I don't want to say close to habitable sometime this year. And I suspect there won't be HVAC by then. Let's see. Can I see Tesla moving into motorsports? Maybe. Yeah, no, that's something Murthy says. In India, people commute less than 20 miles one way. Most people in the US commute less than 20 miles one way. So Tesla doesn't need to have a big battery keeping the car price low. I believe that the optimal robotaxi has a 200 kilowatt hour pack. The optimal robotaxi is a 200 mile range and maybe a 40 or 30 kilowatt hour pack, especially if you go down the Tesla Compact. Need a 3D printer for lab meat. That's an interesting idea. Well, where the Cybercabin is good for hunting, and there's this monster lake. The 5th largest lake in Florida is a mile away and it's stocked with bass like crazy. A lot of bass fishing on that lake. Solar roof on doghouse. No, the doghouse is going to be inside the house. Does the 38K solar include Powerwall? No, Powerwall I think was $22,500. I think it's I think it was $7,500 a Powerwall. Get an electric toilet. I don't know what an electric toilet is. If somebody mentioned electric toilet, Sensation PDX, if you can email me or direct message me on Twitter, whatever this electric toilet is, I'll take a look at it. The Bears hated Elon's justification of price. I watched the after hours when he said that live, and they started shorting like mad just then. I think anybody shorting Tesla is insane. It's growing. They're making money and they're growing. How can you short Tesla? It's crazy. Improving me. 12 kilowatt hours is a great amount. What kind of things are you using? We have a large house with 2 air conditioners, and our electric bill is anywhere from, let's say, $250 to $400 a month or more, depending on weather. Like in a particularly hot summer month, it's probably over $400 a month. Their estimate of solar production was like they were going to save me $200 a month or $150 a month in solar. So I'd rather get more watts. And then if I'm going to be adding a Cybertruck and maybe a Model Y, I want more solar production because I'm going to be using more electricity. Do I think the Biden decision to use 600,000 federal battery electric vehicles would lead them to use a Tesla? So I think that politicians make promises, and whether they deliver on them is another question entirely. Maybe the 600,000 EVs is over the course of 10 years, and it's not that big of a deal. There's enough demand for Tesla no matter what. That's another thing in the call. I think it was Zach Kirkhorn, not Elon. Zach Kirkhorn said, global demand exceeds our ability to produce vehicles. They cannot produce enough vehicles to meet global demand. The China Model Y sold like so fast. Crazy. Am I allowed to do geothermal for the Cybercabin? I haven't looked at geothermal. I think a system like that would be expensive. If you know something about how I could do geothermal for Cybercabin, send me a direct message or an email, and I'll take a look at it. Mentalect, I have over 700 people on the MailChimp list, and there may be others, so we may be close to 800 people on the list for Boring Brain Fund. You will need a much bigger solar roof to power the Cybertrucks. Exactly. It's not a bigger roof. It's more of the roof has to have solar cells, and the south facing my house has an unusually large share of the roof facing south, just the way it's built, because there's a lower roof over the garage that adds more. But I'm probably going to want to put solar cells on the east and west sides. This is Florida in the middle of summer. Sun's almost directly over. I'm exaggerating, but sun's directly overhead. So the east and west facing roof faces will still get a lot of sun and still be useful. So if I can get more, I'll get more. Even though those roof sections will be less efficient overall, I still think it's worth doing. I would not be surprised if Biden imposed a union requirement. Oh, this is another detail. I probably should have mentioned this in Tesla news. If you didn't get this piece of news, Nancy Pelosi, for those of you who are not American, you may not be familiar with this. Nancy Pelosi is the Speaker of the House. She is probably She is arguably the most important politician in America, arguably more important than the president. She is the most powerful person in the most powerful section of the House of Congress. She bought over $500,000 in Tesla options, as in betting that Tesla will go up. This is like, it's insane that we have politicians buying not only buying stock, but buying options and buying them at such value. So if there's good news for Tesla, she makes millions, tens of millions of dollars based on what she bought. So if they extend the EV tax credit to all vehicles, and Tesla buyers are going to save $7,500 a vehicle in the United States. We don't really have a demand problem already, but Tesla's able to charge more effectively for their vehicles, and it's insane. And if they do a solar roof credit, like a tax credit for solar, that's going to be great. Both of these would be great for me since I'm buying a Cybertruck and I'm buying a solar roof. I should say the solar roof still might not happen. It may be in 3 months they say we didn't make the Miami-Dade code rating, whatever. But if Nancy Pelosi is betting on Tesla's growth, then what kind of idiot's going to bet against them? She has a personal financial stake in Tesla growing fast and making money. Arguably the most powerful politician in America has a personal financial stake in Tesla doing well. And there are people betting against Tesla. Absolutely crazy. Is she a crook? Yeah, I don't want to get into the politics of it and say she's a crook or not. I don't care about that. I care about it, but not for the purpose of this live stream. Is it right that politicians invest like this? Who cares? It is what it is. Whatever you care, whatever your thoughts on that. If you are thinking about whether to invest in Tesla or whether to short Tesla, and the most powerful politician in America made a $500,000 plus bet, maybe $1 million bet on Tesla, the one person with the most influence on how politics will affect Tesla just made a big bet on Tesla, and you're shorting it? Okay. Yeah, I don't care whether it's her or her husband. She disclosed it. That's insane. As long as the sun is hitting the paddle, should produce more, maybe not as much. Yes. I don't know what CrowdStrike's a reference to. Let's see. All right. Please stop the Nancy Pelosi comments. We're going to move on to that. I think it's relevant for Tesla, but stop bashing. I don't like her either, but let's stop bashing her. Let's go back and see whether A-frames are for snow country, flat is for hurricane-prone country. I think flat roofs are actually not as good as you might think for roofs. I think the best roofs are is it gabled? I think it's gabled roofs. There's the straight peak roofs, and then there's a roofs where they're more like pyramid shape. The pyramid shape is supposed to be the best for high winds. Elon once said a subscription would allow an owner to run on FSD once or twice a year, monthly, for a long family trip and not pay for it the rest of the year when they don't use it. I have not seen that, Jim. That's an interesting comment. We should know in a month or two what subscription idea is. I'm very curious about that. Let's see. Never bet against Elon. Exactly, Mark. I own an HVAC business and I'm in a huge bull for Tesla. I'm still very skeptical on what they could possibly improve with HVAC that possibly could change the game. Sorry, I'd like to be excited. So Eric Ryan asked about HVAC. I want to address this point because I have a theory. I'm not sure about this theory, but I have a theory. So if you understand why the heat pump, it's a heat pump form of HVAC, why the heat pump works in Model Y and why it's so efficient in Tesla vehicles, it's that you've got one part of the vehicle that needs heat and another part of a vehicle needs cooling. So the batteries need cooling and something else needs heat. And the octovalve and the heat pump together allow you to redirect where the heat is going. And a lot of air conditioning and heating involves waste heat. That the air conditioning is cooling the house and the heat is going out into the air outside. What if you were able to use the heat from your air conditioning to heat the hot water heater? What if you were able to use some other cooling to cool a refrigerator room? You could have a whole refrigeration room. I think there's, this is over my head. I'm not qualified to say exactly how it would work, but if you can use the waste heat from one thing to heat something else that needs heat, maybe it's the oven, whatever it is, you can get incremental gains and they can add up to making a much more efficient system. And I believe heat pumps may be more efficient than normal air conditioners. That's an over my head question. You may know more about that. Oh, hip. Yeah, I meant hip roofs are better than gable roofs. I think gable for wind Flat roofs are the worst. Gable roofs are better, and hip roofs are the best. Hip roofs look more like pyramids. Yeah, and Tesla will have great air filtration too. That's going to be spectacular. Any plans for Tesla utility vehicles like dump trucks, etc.? They don't have the batteries to do more vehicles yet, more models yet. Will GM even survive to 2035? I think that the major car companies are going to fail. The previous major car companies, I should say, are going to fail in the next 5 years. I think governments will bail them out, and then they will fail again. They don't have the ability. Variable refrigerant flow. Interesting. I did consider a geodesic dome, Dave Elliott. And I think there's no, it's not, I don't really have the time to build it myself. And finding a contractor to build something like that is not so easy. Steel buildings are cheap and they're good enough. And I'll be able to put I'll be able to set it up so I can put solar panels on one side of the roof and get plenty of solar. So water table is high. No, there's already a shallow well on the property, and no, the well would not have to be deep at all. That's going to be easy. This is for Cyber Cabin, for people who are wondering. I think solar in India is going to be a big thing. I think Tesla might build a Giga Factory in India for solar and grid storage. Maybe not vehicles yet. I think taxpayers are going to bail out GM at least once more and maybe twice more. Yeah, so insulation is a little bit less important in Florida because we don't have really, really cold weather. My plan is to build the Cyber Cabin and insulate about a quarter. It's going to be like 1,000 square feet. And initially I'm only going to insulate like a quarter of the space and have make it like a very efficient, small space and use the rest of the space for storage. And over time, maybe I'll expand and build out the whole space. But I want to use the space to like have kayaks or some kind of canoes so I can take it down on this, put the kayak in the Cybertruck, drive down to the lake, put the kayak in the lake and go kayaking and fishing maybe. Familiar with Octovalve? The battery doesn't need this cooling on the house. It's in the garage. Great reclaim is great, but I don't know I think there's some efficiencies, Eric. I don't know enough about it. You probably know more about it than I do. If you want to email me with some details about heat pumps and Octovalve and how it could work. I'm picturing a refrigerated room. Like if you ever saw the Heineken commercial where where the woman is showing off her closet with all her clothes and then they hear screaming and the guys are in his closet, which is just filled with Heineken. Could you do a refrigerated room instead of a refrigerator? Would that be more efficient? Is there a way of doing that? I don't know. I've always thought FSD price increase to 100,000 would occur when subscription comes. Others say the ability to buy will go away. So that's I've talked about that before. So I think the point is that if Tesla keeps the car, they make around $40,000 or $50,000 a year running the car as a robo-taxi. So if you sell it for $100,000, you're getting $100,000. If you run it as a robo-taxi for 10 years, let's say you make $30,000 a year on the car, then you make $300,000. Why would you sell the car for $100,000 if you're going to make $300,000 in the car running as your own robo-taxi? So I think it's worth more than $100,000. And then I don't know how the subscription would work. If it's going to cost $100,000 for the FSD, how much would you have to? You'd have to charge a really high price for a subscription. Then people couldn't afford the subscription either. So, cyber alligators at the lake. People talk about alligators all the time. There's no significant problem with alligators in Florida. The most dangerous animal to humans in Florida or anywhere else is on two legs. Four-legged critters, alligators, whatever, they're not a major threat to humans. Yes, thank you to the moderators. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Mark, for your help with clearing the spam comments. Existing car companies like GM needs to have a separate company for EVs. Existing dealers are going to drag them down. My neighbor has a dome house. There's been one problem after another. Yeah, I actually looked at Quonset huts. Quonset huts are lower cost. I probably could assemble my own Quonset hut, but they're just quirky. And honestly, the cost of a normal steel building is so low, why bother with a Quonset hut? If I buy for FSD, I should be able to sell the car with or without it. Tesla's going to have their rules and you got to live with it. Foresee a licensing arrangement with Dojo and FSD to be licensed to enable driverless trains. There's all kinds of possibilities for what's going to happen with FSD in the future. Yes, when you buy a new car, you need to pay for FSD, but keep the car you had then. That's the deal. You know what you're getting into when you buy the car. They told you the deal when you bought the car. What were the leaks? Yeah. Elon says he wants Giga Factories on every continent, so we need Africa, Australia, South America. I could see Brazil Australia is tricky because it's such a small market. I could see Brazil really being a good spot for a Giga factory because it's a industrious country, access to all of Latin America, closer. I could see Mexico too, though, actually. But Texas is so close to Mexico, what's the point? Electric toilets torch the waste. The waste goes to an incinerator, burns to sterile ash. The toilet has an electric exhaust pipe. I will look that. If somebody send me an email about electric toilets, I'll take a look at that. Any updates on Giga New York? Giga New York is scaling production of solar roof. Going well. Do the opposite of whatever Gordon Johnson says. That's I like it. What will be the impact to jobs in the Midwest once robocars and trucks are the norm? So this is a very common thought about technological change is some jobs will be eliminated and some jobs will be created. And you have a choice. You can live in a dynamic economy, and in a dynamic economy, new jobs are created fast, and the new jobs tend to be better than the old jobs. You can live in a highly regulated economy that makes it difficult to build things, difficult to start companies, disincentivizes you. If you watch AOC and Bernie Sanders and Robert Reich trashing Elon for making money, Elon is making the world a better place, and he's getting compensated for it. If you take away the incentive to invent new businesses and build new businesses, then you take away the new job creation. And it's just a choice that you make. If you are committed to this notion of social justice and you don't care about making our lives better overall, then you've made your choice. That's the Bernie Sanders approach. That's the AOC approach. They don't care about technological change, making our lives better. They want to preserve the existing order. And they want as much power over it as they can. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little too far into politics there. So that's what I think, though. Why don't they push Neuralink faster? They're just starting human trials, and you can't push human trials faster. People's lives are at stake. I think that the amount of usage my electric toilet would get would be small enough because I'm only gonna be at Cyber Cabin like once a month. Maybe I'll go up twice a month if I really get into it. Do I think they would dedicate one Gigafactory to right-hand drive? Yeah, I think they could build a Gigafactory in the UK or Japan. Those are both right-hand drive countries. I think there could be two. Japan is a huge market, so I could see that. Oh, I did. The original idea for Cyber Cabin was to use a ring, a steel ring from a starship, and build it up. Stack two rings or something like that, and then put some kind of dome on top. But that's too hard to do. Thank you, Clint. Would it make sense to use a flat bottom arch in the boring tunnels? Then you only have to pave it. I don't know what you mean. I think what they're doing in boring tunnel makes sense. Compost hot water system for my cabin. That sounds cool. Send me an email about that. I want to know more. Do I recommend a resource to understanding local laws regarding FSD? I only know about Florida. I would say most lawyers wouldn't know, so I don't know the answer to that question. In Florida, it's state law says local governments can't regulate it. I don't know how other states work. Let's see. Elon will spend the bulk of his money to improve the world. He's this century's Einstein. He's more than Einstein. He's like Edison and Einstein and Da Vinci together. Amazing. And that may be understating him. Bjorn Nyland found a Norway firm that made a pulled trailer with lots of fold-out solar. The idea was to provide power for workers building cabins in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. Are Boring earnings a part of Tesla earnings? No. Boring Company is a separate company. Neuralink is a separate company. SpaceX is a separate company. They're all separate. They have the same owner, same CEO. They do have some interaction. Some of the engineers, they pass engineers around as needed, I think Boring Company uses SpaceX's property for some of its stuff. What's the current capacity of a current Tesla solar panel? I believe that the solar retrofit panels are around 350 watts. Cormac, hi Warren, extremely disappointing. Boring Company lost the contract for Ontario Airport. Me, you, and Will should be their sales team. No, look, the Ontario Airport, I didn't know about that, but the Ontario Airport contract is a trivial contract. It was like a 2-mile tunnel. That's not a very important tunnel. What's going on in Vegas is way more important. What's going on in Austin is way more important. What's going on in Miami is way more important. And then if you look at the Vegas plan, it looks like they may run a tunnel from Vegas to LA. That's much bigger. Compost hot water, not that easy to do. Let's see. Boring tunnel and circle, Large Hadron Collider, sure. Well, Einstein, John Jacobs says Elon's great, but not Da Vinci and Einstein and Edison. He's closest to Edison. Einstein was like a more of a researcher. He didn't make anything. He came up with theories. Da Vinci was, innovative for his time. I don't know. I think what Elon's doing is absolutely spectacular. Cormac, I was thinking today that Elon should hire me as head of government relations. And I don't know if you guys have heard me say this before, that I think Tesla needs to hire a retired congressman or former congressman and pay them a lot of money. And their only job is to take current members of Congress out to dinner. Just buy them, take them out to dinner and tell them how great it is working for Tesla. And not talk about a single policy issue. And the idea is that the congressmen get the message: if you're good to Tesla, then when you're done, you'll have a really high-paying job when you get out. And, it's not even a full-time gig. You pay them $500,000 a year just for dinners. And then, go to dinner once or twice a week. It's evil, but at some point you got to be evil. Durasol block is a great option for your Durasol block. Send me an email with details about Durasol block. I doubt that. I think that the steel cabin is going to be a cheaper option. Can't wait until you can buy solar roof panels at local hardware store. I think you can buy them on Amazon. I don't know what the advantage is of buying them at a hardware store. Will Tesla start buying up oil and gas lease land for Tesla solar? That's an interesting idea. I don't think so. Yeah, but Cormac, it's a small. Cormac is asking about the Boring Company project. Boring Company not getting the project in Ontario, California. The project in Las Vegas is so much bigger. The project in Austin is going to be so much bigger. Whatever happened in California. California is a mess. So, any thoughts on Amazon Rivian EV collaboration? I wish them luck. I think I heard somebody say they saw a Rivian Amazon truck on the road somewhere. What if you break down in a tunnel? I don't know. How often do you break down now? Why is this a big concern? That's a problem anywhere. Warren, you couldn't stomach the No, I'm not the one interacting with the politicians. I'm paying the politicians to go interact with the politicians. I'm paying the retired politicians to go interact with the active politicians. And then I'm hiring like actual lobbyists to go and talk on policy issues separately. Tesla solar panels are 340 watts. I don't know how many watts the solar tiles are. That's, I think, a question that we don't know the answer to yet. Send Elon a plastic flamingo? I don't get that. I don't know. Edison was a better businessman. Elon's already the wealthiest man in the world. I don't know what you're talking about. Kathy Wood. So people comment on when ARK Invest and Kathy Wood sell Tesla. The deal is that they have a strict rule in their fund that they can't be more than 10% in any stock. So when Tesla grows enough that they go over 10%, they have to sell. When Tesla falls under 10%, they buy more. It's not anything to worry about. Does SpaceX have a ticker symbol on the market? No, SpaceX is not publicly traded. Insight, thank you for your support. Thank you so much for your support, Insight. Jim, if you you can buy solar panels on Amazon. They're easily available and you can self-install them. I don't see what the local hardware store advantage is. Unless you just like going to a local hardware store. If it breaks down, it breaks down. Then you tow it out or you push it out. What's the big deal? Why is this a big deal? Apple should buy Aptera. Whatever. Yes, Scott from Maryland, exactly about ARK. The tunnel has an escape hatch. Edison was a thief and history was manipulated. Okay. Maybe he stole a little. Being a sleazy Tesla lobbyist is my calling. Boring tunnel, inter-island would be great. Between which islands? Did Elon fall to number 2 with stock drop? I don't know. Elon's wealth is understated because the SpaceX valuation is low. SpaceX valuation is based on the last funding round. SpaceX is worth more than people realize. SpaceX version of Cybertruck. How cool would that be? Like a SpaceX Roadster. Oh, like a Cybertruck with the compressed gas so it can fly and stuff? That would be cool. Do I think the huge amount of money chairperson Denholm has made this year from selling stock is justified? I don't see why. I don't see anything wrong with it. If she owns the stock and she sells it, I think she would have made more money if she hadn't sold it. So Be Nice says paid lobbyists should be banned, and the problem with that is that we have the right to petition our government, and it's reasonable to pay people for that purpose. So I appreciate that you don't like it, but it's constitutional. It's protected constitutionally. Marshall, you're more bullish on Tesla than ever, I'm assuming, considering what is your price target for 2022? Marshall, I'm formulating that this week, and I'll have a video this week with my new expected numbers for Tesla going forward. And I don't call them price targets. These are like bull scenarios. I would like to know how Elon got more hair. I'm guessing he can afford it. That's all I can say. Jim, if you go on Amazon and search for solar panels, they're all over Amazon. I'm not saying Amazon is the best place to buy. I think the best place to buy is probably, was it Alibaba? There's some Chinese website where you order them shipped from China, and it's really, really good price. I bought some sound insulation from this website in China. I don't remember the name of that. Is it Alibaba? I forget what it's called. It's like some place where you buy like construction supplies and stuff. Not like a consumer purchase thing. It's like you can buy things in quantity. You can buy them small, but you can buy them in quantity too. What are my thoughts on Mobileye's self-driving software? Great question. So Mobileye does not provide public information on their driving software. They do occasional stunts where they show off something. But to my knowledge, Mobileye does not have significant self-driving software. I think I would rather talk about Waymo. I think Waymo is vastly overrated. And I could be wrong about this, but here's the simple thing. Waymo is supposedly the leader in self-driving, according to some media. Well, then why haven't they scaled? Why haven't they expanded beyond where they are in Phoenix? Why haven't they scaled? The reason they haven't scaled, in my opinion, again, this is just an opinion, the reason Waymo has not scaled is because it's not that good, and they have humans who are watching the cars, and the humans have to intervene. And in order to scale, they would have to hire more humans to intervene. And the cars are outrageously expensive. You know, a Tesla Model 3 with FSD is a ballpark of $40,000. A Waymo car is like $100,000 or more. With all the hardware that goes with it. Did you ever finish the doghouse? That's the second time. Did you ask this already? The doghouse is not finished, still working on it. And I pretty much made my plan for the next doghouse. This is the doghouse prototype. I hopefully will finish it next weekend. And then after that, we're going to do one made out of hardwood instead of cheap plywood. I think that's going to be better. My Cybertruck will be camo with a Gatling gun on either side and a rocket launcher mounted over the roof. Gatling gun? I was thinking you have a turret on the back of Cybertruck with like a 50 cal. Rocket launcher, I'm not sure I want a rocket launcher. Let's see. What, in your honest thought, what do I think about Elon doing a parent company? Good question. I think I made a video about this, Brandon. Elon doing a parent. There was some tweets back and forth. I think it was Professor Dave Lee on investing, who suggested that Elon form an X.com and merging all the companies under one holding company. I don't think it's viable for Tesla or SpaceX. They're too big. I made a video where I talked about how Elon could do it, where he would create a company that he dumps some Tesla shares in, and you can buy into the company, and then the company gets in on the funding rounds like I'm trying to do, or gets into funding on the other companies. And Elon maintains a majority share of X.com, or majority voting rights on X.com, so he still has control of his companies, but he allows us to invest in it. That's an idea. Solid-state batteries. Somebody asked about solid-state batteries. Should Tesla have some R&D into solid-state batteries just in case they do come to market? So I would suspect that Tesla is researching solid-state batteries. I think solid-state batteries are dead. This is an extreme. I should probably make a video about this. I think solid-state batteries are dead. They're over. I think the case for solid-state batteries is dead with the 400 watt-hour per kilogram. With the 400 watt-hours per kilogram in the 4680 cell in a few years, with $55 a kilowatt hour in price. Why would you, will solid state cost less? Here's the thing, you might achieve higher energy densities with solid state, but will it cost less per kilowatt hour? Because at 200 watt hours per kilogram or less, lithium iron phosphate is good enough for Model 3 in China, for Tesla Compact. At 400 watt hours per kilogram and $55 per kilowatt hour, the 4680 cell is going to be so compelling. When you come up with your solid state cell, number one, you have to manufacture it at volume, but will it cost less per kilowatt hour? Because if it's not going to cost less per kilowatt hour, then there's some uses where that additional energy density is useful, like airplanes or maybe shipping. But you've got to get the cost down, and I'm not convinced that solid state will get the cost down. No, 4680 is not solid state. That's a different thing. Charlie Doyle would bet lots that Waymo will have a big robotaxi business before Tesla. Okay, well, Charlie, why haven't they scaled? Why haven't they expanded beyond Phoenix? Beyond a small section of Phoenix? Solid state batteries are liquefied. Okay, maybe you guys know more than I do. What do I think about Elon buying or partnering with Hyperscience? I don't know what Hyperscience is. So, Johnny B, whoever owns the surface land owns the land underneath. I think that's a state-by-state thing. I think in some states that's true, and in some states it's not. I'm not sure how true that is, and state law can change. All right. Would unpainted robo-taxis make sense given that nobody would really care about the color? How much would it cut costs? I think that would be a small difference. I think cyber robo-taxis would be great because then you wouldn't have to worry about painting them anyway. I think you need to paint them to rust-proof them, though. XL pipeline workers making 100K now can get 30K jobs installing solar panels. Okay. Biden will need to give a 50% tax credit on American-made solar panels. I think Tesla is using China-made solar panels. I don't think we're going to be making solar panels in the US. We're buying them from China, and I see nothing wrong with that. It's great. Can we buy land underground? That would be really cool if the Boring Company bored out tunnels and sold rights to the land underground. That's a really cool idea. I love that idea. 26 acres in Texas if Elon wanted to start a company here. I think that there's more to it than... I think Elon can buy land easy. Only if the property contains mineral rights. Why is Bill Gates buying up land? Ted Turner. I think you got to recognize when you have hundreds of billions of dollars, you got to do something with it. You got $100 billion, you got to do something with it. You might as well buy some land. It's a reasonable investment for the long term. It's usually low cost to maintain if you just buy bare land. Can't wait to see I'm looking forward to crash test videos for Cybertruck. That's going to be fun. How far? It would be interesting to see if you could make solar in India cost competitive. There are other countries that are potentially cost competitive with China in producing certain products. I think Vietnam is actually pretty cost competitive in some areas. But China just has tremendous capital investment that makes it, they get more out of their labor so they can pay their labor more. So stainless steel will do fine in salt water as long as it's not exposed to oxygen, right? It's only when it's exposed to oxygen that the rust sets in. Waymo's driver isn't ready yet. That's why there's no scale. So Charlie, what makes you think that Waymo is going to have a robotaxi before Tesla? I mean, they already have a robotaxi business that Tesla doesn't have, but it's a phony, tiny robotaxi business. Why do you think they're going to be better? What is Tesla, because Charlie is in here, I'm guessing Charlie is trolling a little bit. Charlie is trolling saying Waymo is going to be ahead of Tesla in robotaxi. Like, look, Waymo is in like 100 cars. Tesla FSD is in 1 million cars. Tesla's FSD is learning a lot faster than Waymo's self-driving software. It's that simple. Space lasers will burn your garden. Interesting. Gates is also building bunkers. China has fantastic... China is doing a great job. I mean, you can criticize their government if you want to, and I probably wouldn't... I don't love any government, but they're doing a good job. Is the new Model S steering drive-by-wire? I think all Teslas are drive-by-wire, but I could be wrong. All right, we're approaching 3 o'clock. I know my wife wants me to wrap this up early if I can. I'm out of material. So I'm going to thank everybody for watching. Please check out the shirts. Evolution. Check out the Boring Brain shirt. Check out the Rocket Evolution shirt. Please support this channel on Patreon. Links in the description below. Buy the t-shirts. Links in the description below. Check out my other videos. In particular, I just made a video explaining the Q4 2020 call. It was an hour and 50 minutes long, but people are raving about that video. And I got two big videos coming this week where I'm going to talk about Tesla valuation the battery revenue model going forward based on what we learned from this call. And I already forgot what the other one's going to be. So, Indian food. I think we're doing something else. So, thank you everyone. Oh, we're going to a museum, I think, and then we're going out to dinner. So, thank you so much for watching. I'm going to end the stream. I am going to stay on the chat this time. So, thanks everyone for watching.